The cul-de-sac was a battlefield of petty grudges, and HOA Karen was its self-appointed general. With a sneer that could curdle milk, she waddled into the neighbor's yard, her sister Mai trailing like a loyal henchman, ready to wage war on a tricycle. HOA, a woman whose presence screamed entitlement louder than a megaphone, had long ruled the HOA with an iron fist. Her 300-pound frame, draped in a garish floral dress, loomed over the quiet suburban street like a storm cloud. She wasn't just the HOA president, she was the dictator of cul-de-sac aesthetics, the arbiter of mailbox colors, and the terror of every kid who dared leave a toy in sight. Her sister Mai, wiry and sharp-tongued, was her echo, amplifying every complaint with a venomous nod. Together, they were the Karen sisters, a duo that made neighbors flinch and dogs hide. That humid August evening, the air buzzed with tension. The target? The Nguyen family's backyard, a modest patch of green where their kids, Lin and Bao, played with a mishmash of toys: a red tricycle, a soccer ball, a plastic dinosaur with one eye missing. To HOA, it was an eyesore, a blight on her vision of suburban perfection. To the Nguyen's, it was their children's joy. Disgusting, HOA muttered, her voice dripping with disdain as she surveyed the yard. This mess is dragging down property values. Mai nodded, her eyes glinting with malice. Let's clean it up. For the community. The Nguyen's weren't home. Min, the father, was working late at the restaurant, and his wife, Thuy, was at a parent-teacher conference. The kids were at a friend's house, leaving the yard unguarded, a fatal mistake in Hoa's eyes. With a grunt, she heaved herself over the low fence, her dress catching briefly on a splinter. Mai followed, snatching up the tricycle with a smirk. Confiscation, HOA declared, as if she were a cop in a bad movie. She grabbed the soccer ball and stuffed it into a garbage bag Mai had brought. The plastic dinosaur went next, its one-eyed stare judging them silently. They worked quickly, piling toys into bags like thieves in the night, oblivious to the fact that they were thieves. Across the street, old Mr. Carter watched from his porch, his arthritis-ridden fingers tightening around his cane. He'd seen Hoa's tyranny before, her fines for untrimmed hedges, her rants about unauthorized birdhouses. But this was new. He reached for his phone, his hands trembling not from age but from rage. By the time the Nguyen's returned, the yard was barren. Lin, 6, burst into tears when she saw her tricycle gone. Bao, barely 4, clutched his mother's leg, whispering, "Where's Dino?" Thuy's face hardened as she scanned the empty grass, her heart sinking. Min, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, felt a fire ignite in his chest. "Who did this?" he demanded, his voice low but shaking. Mr. Carter hobbled over, his cane tapping the pavement. "Hoa and Mai," he said, pointing to the sisters' house, where a pile of black garbage bags sat smugly on their driveway. "Caught him red-handed. I called the cops." The police arrived quietly, their cruiser's lights painting the street red and blue. Officer Ramirez, a no-nonsense woman with a knack for cutting through drama, stepped out. She listened as Min explained, his voice breaking as he described Lin's sobs. Thuy held up a photo of the missing toys, her hand steady but her eyes blazing. HOA and Mai emerged from their house, all indignation and bluster. "We're protecting the neighborhood." HOA snapped, her chins wobbling as she gestured at the bags. These toys were a hazard. The HOA rules clearly state. "Ma'am," Ramirez cut in, her tone sharp as a blade. "HOA rules don't override state law. Taking property without permission is theft." Hoa's face flushed red, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I tried to back her up, her voice shrill. "We were going to return them. After a fine, of course. It's procedure." Ramirez raised an eyebrow. "Procedure? You stole children's toys. That's not procedure. That's a crime." The neighbors had gathered now, a small crowd of curious faces. Mrs. Jenkins, who'd once been fined by HOA for planting non-approved roses, whispered loudly, "Karma's a real piece of work, isn't it?" A few people snickered. HOA shot them a venomous glare, but it lacked its usual sting. The officer inspected the bags, pulling out the tricycle and the dinosaur. Lin ran forward, hugging the dinosaur like a long-lost friend. Bao clung to the tricycle's handlebars, his small face lit with relief. Min and Tui exchanged a look not triumph, but quiet resolve. They'd been pushed around by HOA nonsense for too long. "You're lucky the Nguyen's aren't pressing charges," Ramirez said, her voice firm. "But you're getting a citation, and I'm reporting this to the city. Your HOA's authority ends where the law begins." HOA's face crumpled, her bravado melting into something pathetic. Ma muttered under her breath, but even she knew they'd crossed a line. The crowd dispersed, some shaking their heads, others openly grinning. Mr. Carter gave Min a nod, a silent, "We got him." But the story didn't end there. Word spread like wildfire. By morning, the cul-de-sac's group chat was ablaze with memes of HOA clutching a tricycle, captioned, "Karen strikes again." Someone, probably Mrs. Jenkins, had scrawled, "Karen's sisters steal toys," on a piece of plywood and nailed it to their fence. The sisters' reign of terror was unraveling, and the neighborhood smelled blood. At the next HOA meeting, HOA tried to reclaim her throne. She stood at the podium, her voice booming about community standards, but the room was restless. Min stood up, calm but unyielding. "You stole from my kids," he said, his words cutting through the air. "You don't get to lecture us about standards." The room erupted in murmurs. Mrs. Jenkins stood next, her voice sharp. "You find me for roses, HOA roses. Maybe it's time we vote for a new president." Hoa's eyes widened, her mouth working soundlessly. I tried to interject, but the crowd was done listening. By the end of the night, HOA was ousted, her gavel passed to Mr. Carter, who promised to keep things fair and not steal anyone's damn toys. The sisters retreated to their house, their garbage bags of confiscated dreams now a symbol of their downfall. The Nguyen's yard was alive again, Lin and Bao laughing as they raced the tricycle. Tui planted a new flower bed bright, unapproved marigolds right where HOA could see it. Min watched from the porch, a small smile on his face. Justice wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was a child's laugh, a neighbor's courage, a community saying enough. HOA and Mai would live on, but their power was gone, stripped away by their own arrogance. The cul-de-sac was free, and the toys were back where they belonged. The end.